This is Megan Mitchell with Agents of Change, and today we are doing an updated reliability versus validity social work shorts. And if you are someone that struggles with research terms or some of these higher level concepts around data, definitely check this out. And this is just a very brief overview. So what I'm going to do today is discuss validity, discuss reliability, the different types, and try to keep it as clear as possible because it can be very difficult. So for these, I definitely suggest coming up with your own examples and having a general idea of what validity is and what reliability is. So what is validity? Validity is how accurate a measure is. Does it measure what it's supposed to? So an example would be there is the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Test, right? That's an IQ test. And this would be a valid measure because it's intended to measure intelligence and it is measuring intelligence. So you need to make sure for validity, is the measure aligned with what it's supposed to measure? That makes the measure valid. And I will say, standardized different assessment tools are going to be valid. That's how they become evidence-based. They should be valid and reliable. So there are different types of validity, and we are going to break down 3 different types of validity. There's construct validity, content validity, and face validity. And these can be complicated and they can be a little bit tricky or confusing. So make sure you go through this information a couple times. Check out on YouTube if you can do a search of these different types of validity because sometimes people can mix them up. So let's start with construct validity. What is that? This construct validity is, does the test measure the correct construct? So maybe the construct's a particular characteristic. Does the test measure the characteristic it is supposed to? For example, if I'm measuring ability to utilize a coping mechanism, does my measure actually measure coping mechanisms as opposed to something else? So here's our example here. You might want to be determining if a mindfulness education program increases emotional maturity in elementary students. Construct validity would measure if your research actually measures emotional maturity. If it's not actually measuring emotional maturity, it's not going to have high construct validity because it's not measuring the characteristic we're hoping it to measure. So it needs to be aligned here to have strong construct validity. This gets complicated because it's another C, content validity. So what is content validity? Does the measure or the test represent all content, right? So is it comprehensive? So an example here is, I really like this example because I think that it shows very clearly what content validity is. So for example, a Spanish teacher is going to be developing an end of the year test for her students. So this is going to be a comprehensive test. The test should cover all content that was covered throughout the year, right? That means it has strong content validity because content was presented for the entire year. The test is testing that content over the entire year. However, if there are questions unrelated to Spanish or there are questions related to content that was not covered over the course of the year, this would have low content validity. So sometimes you might feel like that if you ever have taken a test and it's comprehensive and you say, well, we're being asked questions that was not covered. That would have low content validity. If the test is measuring what it is representing, it's supposed to be representing the entire year of content, that would have strong content validity. Then we have face validity. What is face validity? Does the test that we're giving or the measure that we're giving appear to be suitable to its aims? So, does it appear to be at face value aligned with what we're trying to measure? Example here. You create a survey to measure anger in students, okay? So you're giving this questionnaire, the screener, the survey to students, and you're trying to see what are their anger levels. You might ask questions like, how often are you angry? How many fights have you been involved in recently? On the surface level, on the face level, this seems like a good representation of what you want to test, right? You're not asking, how often do you exercise, right? That would not have strong face validity because that doesn't appear to be measuring anger levels. So you want the validity at face level to be aligned with what you're asking for it to have high face validity. Another example of something that would not have high face validity. Once again, say you're trying to measure anger in students. If you ask a question that might say, let me think here. What is your GPA in school? That would not have strong face validity because there does not seem at face value any correlation between school GPA, school performance, and anger issues. Okay, that was validity. Now we have reliability. Reliability is all about consistency, right? Does this measure over time have consistent results? You should have different tools, different screeners, different measures that if you give it 5 times, you should have consistent results, right? Memory trick. Reliability is consistent. How consistent are the results? Example. If you take the ACT 5 times, you should get roughly the same score on the exam each time. This would be a reliable measure. So reliability is if I take it a certain amount of times or if I reproduce this measure time and time again, will I generally get the same response, right? You don't want to have outliers that do not align with the data set. That would be something that has low reliability. And here you'll see it's kind of like a dartboard, right? You would hope that when you're throwing darts, you generally have similar targets that you are trying to hit. And I will show a visual at the end. There's 2 types of reliability, inter-rater reliability and test-retest reliability. These terms to me are a little bit easier to digest and understand than validity. They're pretty straightforward here. So what is inter-rater reliability? It's exactly what it sounds like. It's the level of agreement between raters or judges, right? So if everyone agrees, so as you can see our picture here, they're all giving perfect 10s to, let's say this is a gymnast performing. We'll say this is Simone Biles and she got perfect 10s. That would have strong 100% inter-rater reliability because they all rated it the same. If everyone disagrees, the inter-rater reliability would be 0%. So as you can see here, and there will be some deviation, right? Some deviation is good, especially if it's something that is maybe subjective, right? You might need to then determine what is the range of reliability. But you don't want to have things that are vastly different. And sometimes scores like the outliers are thrown out because that would show that is out of the what is acceptable range. So sometimes even in sports, they might throw out the highest and they might throw out the lowest so that you're getting better inter-rater reliability. People are subjective though, right? So different observers might have different ideas, different concepts. We know the brains work differently. So reliable research is going to have strong inter-rater reliability because they're trying to minimize the subjectivity as much as possible. That's why we should not have such large ranges, especially when we're doing research and there's different measures, right? So we're trying to minimize that subjectivity so that if different researchers are using this tool or this measure, they should have similar results. It should not be that if I'm doing it, it's way different than if you are doing it, right? There should be some replication because inter-raters should have similar scoring, similar use of the measure. Example, we would expect inter-rater reliability to be high in scores where points are awarded by judges. However, we know there's some subjectivity, right? Here you go. In the Olympics, scores for subjective events, such as gymnastics and diving, should have ratings from judges that are similar. And like I said, scores that are outliers are generally not included because that would be outside of the range of what is acceptable for reliability. And that's to kind of protect the data, right? If someone gives a 10 and someone gives a 2, that's way out of the range, right? So we want to make sure that those outliers are not included because that does not have strong inter-rater reliability. Test-retest reliability. This is another concept that is exactly what it sounds like. It is, if we are to use this measure over and over again under the same conditions, is the data similar? Is the data close? So test-retest reliability is the closeness of agreement. So do we get similar results when the measure is carried out time and time again? So will the results produce the same outcome when the test is given again? This is why when there's trials and we don't just come up with a standardized measure and put it out. It has to go through a lot of tests and retests to make sure that it is reliable. When we give it again, should the person, considering the conditions are the same. So considering that it is under the same conditions. For example, someone might say, well, what if someone tests and they get a lower score or a higher score? Were the conditions the same? Because studying can be a condition. So if someone studied more and they got a higher test, that is not the same condition. So you need to consider that when measures are being done. They have to be in the same conditions with the same outside factors time and time again. Example, you administer a questionnaire to measure the IQ of a group of students. You administered the test 6 months apart, but the results are significantly different. Question for you all, would this have high test-retest reliability or low test-retest reliability? You would give a questionnaire. 6 months later, the results are significantly different. And this is for IQ, knowing that we know IQ does not change much. This would have low test-retest reliability. IQ should be something that is relatively consistent over time. So if you do have a measure that is showing this, it might not be the strongest for reliability. And I do want to preface this with, not every measure is going to have high validity and high reliability. There is a range. Some might be very strong validity, some might be strong reliability, and others might be more in the middle. So not every measure, not every test is going to have the strongest level of evidence for validity and reliability. Can something be reliable but not valid? So let's think of this here. Can something be reliable but not valid? Yes, it can be. Because what if example here, you have a scale, but it's not calibrated correctly. It could be 5 pounds over or 5 pounds under. You're going to reliably get the same weight, but that's not valid, right? So are you consistently getting the same results? Yes, but you're not getting valid results, if that makes sense. However, a test cannot be valid unless it's reliable. You do not need to worry about semantics here. I just want you to know that you can reliably get bad test results, is basically what you need to know from this slide. But you can't have valid results unless you're reliably getting those results. So here's my little visual. Here is our dartboard. This gives you an example of validity reliability. So target A, notice here, the goal here is to get in the bullseye, in the center, in that yellow ring. So target A, They all are very close together, but so they're consistently in the same area, but they're not hitting the target. So they're reliable, right? We are reliably getting a target in that left-hand corner of the bullseye. However, we're not getting where we need to be. We're not getting the target of the middle bullseye. So that would have poor validity, but really reliable. Target B is all over the place here, right? This is not, we don't have anything that's kind of showing any patterns to show consistency. Remember, reliability is consistency. So here we don't have good reliability, and we're nowhere near the target of the center bullseye. So this is going to have low validity and low reliability. Lastly, target C, yay, we have a cluster that is consistent. That is going to have our high reliability, and we hit our target. We are in that center circle, so we also have high validity. We are hitting where we are supposed to be hitting. So if you are a visual learner, I hope this helps. I know some of these terms can be tricky, so supplement and find info in a way that's going to work for your learning style. Maybe that's finding a YouTube video or finding a podcast or finding an image. Google can be a good source for some of these larger terms. So if you really struggle with some of these things, I know the wording can be confusing. I get tripped up on it all the time. Go through this a few times, go through it at a slow pace so that you can get a handle on some of these topics. If you are looking for more ASWB study content, check us out at agentsofchangeprep.com. We have tons of material from free to paid. We have something for everyone. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to help. You can contact us at agentsofchangeprep@gmail.com. And of course, I want you to thank you for tuning in. If you are listening, make sure to subscribe so that you can have updates on our latest content. We often are rebooting some of our older content to make sure that it is high quality. And wherever you are in your studying journey, I just want to reassure you that you can do hard things and you got this. Thank you.